characteristics of a working editor. A characteristic might be something you're born with. You might have a great deal of talent in a particular area, and you'll come over the years, you'll come to realize that you do have a talent and things come easily to you. Other things are going to have to be learned. And sometimes they'll come easy and sometimes they won't. As we discuss them, you'll kind of see if they fall into something that you feel like you are already or something you need to improve on. And then a working editor, what does that mean? Well, it's probably easier to say what is not a working editor. If you're shooting your own videos and you're editing your own videos and you do it all by yourself and you upload it to YouTube, then you can pretty much define and set your own workflow in the way that works best for you. But if you're working on a team at a school project, or you get a job and you're working with other editors and producers and collaborators, or heaven forbid, you may have somebody with a scary title like director of production, then you've kind of got to follow a certain method to the madness. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about here. So the very first thing that you need to be is detailed. Whatever you're working on, you're responsible for the final technical quality of it. And any one frame could mess you up. And these frames kind of tend to hide and jump out at you when you least expect it. Let's say you're working on a 30-minute documentary. Well, in that 30 minutes, there are going to be 54,000 frames. And any one of them might be an upcut, a jump cut, a black frame. It could be a vestige of something left over from a previous edit. It could be just about anything. And you've got to be detail-oriented to go looking for those things. Most times things get rejected for the very small things because the large things are easy to catch. And you don't want to get things rejected, or you don't want to send it into a film festival and then be embarrassed when you see that tiny little thing that you, or quite frankly, nobody else noticed. So on the screen, even though it says 54,000 frames, there's actually 2,000 zeros up there. So multiply that by 27 and you'll get an idea of how much detail there is in a show, again, a 30-minute documentary. So now that you've got all that detail to work with, you need to be organized. You've got to be able to put all these assets that you're working with in a project into places where they can be found relatively easy, especially when other people are asking for things they want you to do. The easiest way I figured out to do that is I have a rule of never putting files directly in the root of a project file or window or panel or whatever software you're working on. Always build a structure of folders in there. And the first ones that come to mind are very easy. Your media should go in a folder. Your sequences should go in a folder. Your music should go in a folder. And every other thing that has its own category should go in a folder, including sound effects. And I mentioned sound effects because this thing keeps bumping on me. There we go. Here's a timeline for you. This is a Civil War documentary that was made by Ken Burns. And in case you don't remember, back in the 1860s when the Civil War was fought, there was no video and there was no film and there was no sound recording, and they just barely had photography, had just started. So all these tracks and tracks of what you see are sound that are being introduced into the program to up the realism of it. So you might have human being sounds, you might have sounds being made by horses, you might have sounds being made by cannons shooting off and rifles. Lots of things. And if you don't keep it organized and somebody comes in and they want some changes, then it's going to be a mess to try and sort out. So organization is very important. The next thing is the big picture. Once you've gotten the idea and habit, I should say habit more than idea. Once you've gotten your habits down of working with and being very detailed and being very organized, then you can kind of be like a drone and go straight up in the air and look straight down on your project and see the whole thing from beginning to end and know what it's supposed to be and how it's going to work the best. This is where you start developing your aesthetic about actually making programs that people want to watch, as opposed to ones that people start looking at their phones and wondering how they can get out of watching it. So, and in most cases, the big picture, and vast majority of cases, big picture comes down to one thing. Story, somebody got it. There we go. I didn't have to go all the way through. Everything is almost always a story, whether it's a 30-second TV commercial or an 8-hour documentary that's carved up into 4 different nights, 2 hours apiece. Everything tells a story. And every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the roller coaster displays that. It starts somewhere, it goes somewhere, it ends somewhere. And I particularly like this picture because all that steel framework represents all the different edits you have to make to get it to go from one place to another. So once you start being able to talk with anybody that you're working with, a producer, a collaborator, a partner, a co-editor, once you start being able to discuss the story and look at the big picture, then you can really start to develop your aesthetic and become a better editor, because the more you understand what you're trying to do, the less other people have to kind of get in the way, and then things kind of can get kind of muddied up. Not that teamwork isn't a very important part of all this, but the best you can do right off the bat, the more you can talk about the high level things and not trying to be recreating the wheel because you didn't get the story right. It's out of order or it just doesn't flow properly. Then after that, we're going to get to the fourth level, and that is creativity. Once you can start introducing creativity on top of those other things that we've just talked about, then you're really going to go somewhere. And creativity, to mind, these words I just threw in there, there's other words too, but they're made up of all these different things. Creativity, it's got to kind of be original. Otherwise, you may have thought of it, but if somebody else did, it's kind of like going for a domain name. You think you have a great domain name and you go to get it registered and somebody else already has it, of course, because it wasn't that strange of a thing to think of. Inspiration, that always strikes you. You could be driving down the road, you could be working in a different class, and all of a sudden some inspiration hits you. Individuality, everybody has a different story to tell, so never disclude what your life experience is all about. And imagination, I put that one up there, and to me that's the most important one, because you may think that imagination leads directly to creativity, but it doesn't necessarily. You start with imagination, you're always imagining things, what if, what if, what if, but if you don't have the tools to turn that into a working project, then you don't really have creativity. So creativity is a combination of all these inspirations and attitudes you have, but you have to combine them with these tools. And again, we're going through the tools are going to be, you need to be detailed, you need to be organized, you want to see the big picture, and then you can let your creativity really flow.